That's me and my brother, 1972. I'm the little one. My mother didn't, when we were poor, she didn't believe in buying anything new, so she bought thinning shears and scissors at an antique store. And she didn't know you needed to sharpen those things, so she would cut our hair by basically ripping it out of our heads into the shape of what looked like, she called it the Dutch boy. But yeah, that's me and my brother, Andy. 1976, I was 5. This is in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. We would go every year for a few days. My mom and her best friend, who had 2 kids as well, both divorced. We sort of lived together most of my childhood because we were poor, like I said. And they would save enough money for us to stay in this old farmhouse in town in Rehoboth. 2 bedrooms, 6 of us staying in there. And it was the best time ever. So this is just a memory of me, my brother, and my mom. So my brother and I, when I was 13, he was 16. And that's my brother's graduation picture. The importance of this, and the reason why I show you these pictures, is I'm going to tell you a story about my brother. And this is the part where I usually cry. So, growing up in Pottstown, my brother was autistic before there was autism. My brother was labeled mentally retarded. And he stuttered profusely. So much so that his face would contort and his eyes would roll into the back of his head. And it was uncomfortable for him. It was uncomfortable for me. It was uncomfortable for anybody that was around me to be in that spot when he was having those moments where his face was contorting and he couldn't speak. But as his little brother, you would think that I'd be the one that he'd be protecting. Unfortunately, we had kind of a role reversal in our life, where I was the older brother by proxy because he just wasn't necessarily capable of being the older brother because of the situation he was in. From the time I can remember until I was 18 and he was 21 when he died, I was his protector. For every day that he got picked on, I got into a fist fight. And every fist fight I got into, I learned something about myself. I learned how to overcome, how to fight hard, how to be resilient. And I learned what it meant to stand up for somebody. July 12, 1989, I was working at a pizza shop. We had just come home from vacation with my parents. My parents went back down for another week. My brother was staying with my grandmother, and I was staying with friends. And I get a phone call from my biological father, who I really had no relationship with. He left when I was 9 months old. The only person the hospital could contact was a number of my brother. He had two phone numbers in his wallet. One was our home number, one was my dad's. My parents were obviously away, so they got a hold of my father. My brother had been in a violent car accident. And yes, he drove. The mentally retarded kid, everybody said was mentally retarded, got his driver's license, graduated high school, albeit when he was 20. He accomplished all these things that everybody said he would never accomplish. And the day that he died, he didn't do anything wrong behind the wheel. He had a medical emergency, something happened where he was unconscious. It was in the summer, obviously in July. His head was sloped down onto the window, which was down, and he veered into oncoming traffic and head on with another vehicle. He was rushed to Hahnemann Hospital in Philadelphia, where he died in the operating room. Well, the day I got the phone call from my dad, I had, all he could tell me was my brother was in an accident, he was in surgery. Everything became real blurry after that, because I was so worried about my brother, but I went to my friend's house where I was staying. My mom calls. My mom's sobbing on the phone, obviously. But at this point in time, I hadn't found out that my brother was dead. My mom couldn't get the words out, and all I kept saying was, "Mom, I know." So she assumed that I knew that my brother had died. Next morning, I get up and I go to work. I'm working and my mom shows up. And my mom got this dumbfounded look on her face, like, "What the hell are you doing here? Why are you not at home?" And I said, "Mom, there's nothing I can do for Andy right now at the hospital. I need to work to get my mind off of it." And she said, "You don't know?" I said, "No what?" And then she told me that he died. From that moment on, for the next 13 years, my heart was shattered. Completely shattered. A month after my brother died, I went in the Army. I had an option to not go in the Army because I was the sole surviving son. I chose to take it because my brother was really proud that I had chosen to become a soldier. How many people have suffered loss? How many people have suffered surprise loss? Crushes you, doesn't it? Imagine being 18 years old. You're the keeper of your brother. Literally, I was my brother's keeper. Every day of my life, I spent protecting him. The day he died, I had an opportunity, or I'd been told by my stepdad, if I had the opportunity to take him to and from work, that would have been a good idea because he had had some clutch issues in his car. Now, mind you, the clutch didn't fail, and that's not why he was in the accident. But from the day he died, that feeling of guilt that I didn't drive him, that day still haunted me. So for 13 years, I put myself through hell. On the outside, it looked like I was living life like a normal human being. Went in the Army, I served my country. I did so valiantly. I was decorated. I got out of the Army and I became a police officer. I did everything I could to challenge God to take me. Every opportunity I had to go into a burning house or a dangerous situation, I took it. And I wanted God to take me. I was angry at God. It didn't make sense why someone who had absolutely nothing, there's no reason why my brother should have died. He served God great. He was pure, he was honest, he was loving, and it was wrong. So for 13 years, I punished myself, I punished God, I drank excessively, I did a lot of things that were negative for myself, while on the outside living this fake facade of okay. I got married in 1997. I met my wife in 1994. Imagine knowing that you didn't love your wife, but yet you should. When I say I didn't love my wife, I don't mean I didn't love her or didn't want to love her. I physically couldn't love. I didn't know how. My heart was shattered. 9 months after we got married, we had a baby, my daughter. The minute I saw her, I felt nothing. Nothing. You know how much that sucks to say? So, I have a protection gene inside me. I protect. I knew it was my job to be a good husband. I was faithful. I was present as much as I could possibly be. I was a present father. I took care of my daughter. I raised her with everything that I could give her, but I couldn't give love. "9/11 happens. Find out my wife's pregnant with another child. I didn't want another child. I wasn't sure I was worthy of another child because I knew what was going on and I couldn't stop it. I knew that I wasn't loving the first one. How could I possibly do the same thing to another one? And it wasn't a surprise, we planned it, but my wife knows me, and she knows what I need. And I think even though she didn't know deep down inside what was going on inside of me, she knew this would help. So I come back from my training in the Air Marshals, and a couple months later I had a son in 2002. And I named him after my brother. Now, that was important to me, for obvious reasons. And when I saw him for the first time, I felt something. I don't know if it was necessarily love. I don't know if it was joy. I don't really know what it was, but I felt something. And a few months after my son was born, I started to really identify with him, and it was almost familiar when I looked at him. Does that make sense? This is the tough part. So a few months after my son was born, we had family over. And it's normally when you have a baby, the wives and the moms and the grandmothers and everybody gets together and they distribute onesies and pacifiers and stuff like that. And the dads go into the kitchen, drink a beer, talk football. So my grandmother was my step-grandmother. My maternal and paternal grandparents all died well before this. There's 3 women in the world I'm afraid of: my wife, my mother, and my grandmother. So my grandmother, when she tells me that she needs me in the room where all the gifts are being handed out, I'm a little confused, obviously. So I sit down, and she hands me a box. And in this box is a quilt. Now, if anything I said to this date make you think that I'm going to appreciate a quilt? Nah. Don't steal my thunder yet. So she hands me this quilt, and I look at the quilt, and I go, it's a quilt. And I fold it back up, and I hand it back to her, and I say, I think this is for Lauren, my wife. And she looks at me with this face that I've seen many times. That face of knock it off, pay attention, look at it. So I unwrap again, and pull it out of the box. Now, if you remember, I said earlier that my brother was staying with my grandmother the week that he died. That meant she was doing his laundry. For 13 years, she kept his clothes. I don't know why. I don't know why she didn't give it to me when my daughter was born. Sorry about that. The quilt was yellows and blues and whites and had 2 teddy bears with the name Andy inscripted on it. And after a couple of seconds, it hit me that they were my brother's clothes. Needless to say, that was kind of a big moment. That night, I was a wreck, kind of like now, but like 100 million times worse. So I went down in my basement office, and I started to write memories about my brother. And I stayed there all night. When I came up that morning, so we lived in Douglasville at the time, and my basement steps would come up into the kitchen. And when you open the door, the kitchen window was literally right across from the basement door. And I saw light and particles of light and color so vibrantly for the first time in 13 years. And that night I wrote 26,000 words of memories about my brother. It's a lot of writing. But I felt completely free after I did it. Imagine the world's weight on your shoulders. The guilt, the pain, the anger, all of a sudden gone. Now mind you, I wasn't 100% like, yay, me, I'm great now. But I knew at that moment I was going to be okay. What do you do with 26,000 words? Anybody? You write a book. So I had not read a book, and this is not a lie. I had a 4.0 in high school. I had a full ride to the Coast Guard Academy, enlisted in the Army, long story. But I only read one book in high school, and that was Animal Farm in 9th grade. So my mother who at the time was an English teacher. She was 35 years as an English teacher. I called her up and I said, Mom, last night I wrote 26,000 words about Andy. What do I do? She said, you write a book. I said, Mom, I haven't read a book since Animal Farm. She said, well, maybe you should start. So I did. I started reading. As an air marshal, you have a lot of time, right, on airplanes and airports. So I read a lot of books, and I realized, you know, I'm not writing fiction. I don't have to create character development or anything like that. I'm just telling my story. So I wrote a book. And that's me in the Army. I'm the one on the left. There's the quilt. So the Andy stitched in the center was from his work shirt. He worked at Frederick Mennonite Home as a janitor. And the blue paisleys are bandanas he would keep for when he was sweating. And the white was his undershirts, and the yellow was a shirt. We had matching shirts one Easter. My mom was really big on that. So that's the quilt. And there's the book. So I wrote that book and published it in 2006. And that book is the single greatest accomplishment of my life. For many reasons. Growing up, Andy didn't have friends. Obviously, it was uncomfortable for people to be around, and it was hard for him to socialize and interact. His only friends were really my friends for the most part. This is my opportunity to create friends for Andy. I've sold thousands of copies of that book, and I get lots of emails, and I get lots of people giving me their thoughts on the book, and every single one of them now knows Andy. It's also a history book for my kids, for my wife, for people in my life who know the story, who know his value in my life, that never knew him. It was also my final gift to my brother. Told you, I'll kick my coverage there. You can see my wife on the far right. I was taken down at the beach. That's Rebecca and Andrew, and obviously yours truly. All right. Now we're going to get in a little bit more of an upbeat portion of this program. I apologize if I brought you down a little bit, but I want you to understand why I do what I do. Why I'm in front of you today, bearing my soul, willing to do that into a group of people I don't know. Because I need you to understand how passionate I am about living my life so well that when I die, those 2 dates in a dash have a meaning. And I want to inspire you guys to have something in your life that inspires you to do that. Some of you are closer to the last date. Some of us are closer to the first date. It doesn't really matter because none of us know when that end date comes. So when you're living your life every single day, you should be doing so with that idea in mind that you got to make the most of your dash. So I'm going to show you 2 videos. How much time do I got?